TripAdvisor reviewer accuses seaside town of creating an unwelcoming Big Brother-style atmosphere by putting up hundreds of notices about parking, dog mess, litter and how to feed ducks. A tourist has said his trip to an English seaside resort was spoiled by the hundreds of signs which created an unwelcoming Big Brother atmosphere. The TripAdvisor reviewer said his visit to Dawlish, on the south coast of Devon, was blighted by hundreds of notices about parking, dog mess, litter and how to feed ducks. The visitor said he was bombarded with signs telling me to do this and not do that during his trip to the Devon town. He fumed, "There are less signs to be found at a top-secret military base. Absolutely everywhere I looked there was a sign telling me to comply in one way or another. There are literally dozens and dozens of them, everywhere. In over 60 years I have never visited anywhere that appears so overly dominated by what I can only assume to be the ruling local councillors whom I imagine to be henpecked do-gooders of independent means with zero understanding of human behavior or even basic visual perspective. Whoever it is, they do your town a great disservice if they continue creating a Big Brother atmosphere." Dawlish locals have sided with the tourist and said there were too many negative signs in the town. Martin Wrigley, current mayor of Dawlish, said, "I agree with the comments. We have signs from Network Rail, Teignbridge District Council and a few from the Dawlish Town Council. I hope we will be looking at both reducing the number of signs, and writing them in positive terms, for example encouraging visitors to use the duck food that we supply outside our waterfowl enclosure, rather than saying don't feed bread to the birds. Dawlish's black swans are a great attraction and people do like to feed them. I also will be encouraging Network Rail and Teignbridge to likewise use fewer signs and with positive phrasing." Former Mayor Howard Almond, 72, said, "I think to a certain extent he has a point. There was another story where people were complaining about signposts to things that were visible. It's a matter of how much information should you actually give. Some people say there isn't enough information and some say there is too much. I think we have to be careful about how many signs there are, but some things are necessary. I can see where he is coming from, but we do have a problem with people visiting and feeding the wrong food to the ducks. We get some very silly people who complain when you don't tell them to do things. It's always a balance. It's like telling people not to touch a coffee cup with hot liquid in it. Sometimes you can go too far." He added, "We do constantly look at the number of signs and it will be reviewed. I visited Dawlish just last week with high expectations considering the publicity of such places as Gay's, Cake Shop, and the lovely Black Swans. I took my 2 dogs with me since the beach, or so I was informed, was dog-friendly. Alas, friendly was not how I would describe Dawlish at all, because from the moment I stepped from my parked car I was bombarded with notices telling me to do this and not do that. By the end of my visit I was convinced I had seen more notices and signs for visitors in town than I had seen by the roadside whilst driving the 14 or so miles from Brixham. Sitting by the river trying to enjoy my Gay's ice cream, my view of the park was totally spoilt by a massive blue sign perhaps a meter square telling me not to feed ducks or to keep my dog on a lead. This sign was unnecessarily large because it was placed on the opposite side of the river facing me, so those on the other side could see only the back of the sign blocking their view. As a result it was oversized and could have been replaced with a considerably smaller version attached to the waste bin right next to my table, with equal effect. As I approached the beach the signage instructed me to keep dogs on leads, pick up their poo, not allowed to do this or that, and to go left to the next beach to let my hounds run free. When I arrived at the next stretch of beach the signs told me to keep dogs on leads. So many notices were contradicted by another nearby. People want to visit and look around without the feeling of being controlled and regulated at every twist and turn. Too many notices, Dawlish. Too many. I am sure Dawlish must be a lovely place underneath all the vinyl and tinplate signage, so how about rationalizing all these signs very soon so your next season of visitors can actually see the town for its true worth and not just feel pushed away by all the rules and regulations on show?